Leinster produced one of their best performances of the season to see off the Bulls at the RDS. My name's Mark, let's talk rugby. It was the Bulls who led early on in this one. A couple of penalties from Houston gives them, a decent 6-0 lead, and honestly, they were well worth it that stage. Their set piece going well. They're on top of the scrum. Line out is doing decently as well, and that they're putting Leinster under pressure, winning those penalties, and Houston just deadly from the tee. But then Leinster hit back. We have a great take by Russell from a high kick that sparks a Leinster attack. Offload from him, kind of like it was one of these ones where he just offloaded into space that actually hit the ground rather than to a player. Conan, though, does really well to get the loose ball, and he keeps it alive. Larmer steps his way through the Bulls line, and they're in behind. He finds Osborne, who then offloads to Josh van der Fleer, who scores, but he basically smashes into the post as he is in the act of scoring, and he recovered from it, but he was fairly winded, at least at the back of that. And then Harry Byrne converts for 7-6. Bulls lose then Marco van Staden to injury shortly after that. Van Staden, he's a player that I really rate, honestly. And there's a lot of players in this Bulls team who don't necessarily see that much game time with the Springboks, but there's a lot of they're kind of one of the teams who I'd say are most similar to Leinster in that there's that quality in the players below their internationals, and the likes of Van Staden, who again wouldn't be like a first choice for the Springboks, but is still hugely influential, I think, on this team. Then we got the likes of Ruan Norcia in the second row as well, who were really right, who had a decent game here too. And then you got like Papier at 9 there as well, and then you have just tons of Springboks in that back line and peppered through out the pack as well. So it's a very decent team there, and they really made Leinster work for this, especially in that first half. The final score might seem like it was a bit of a kind of one-sided thing, but it just kind of blew out towards the end, honestly. But as I said, Bulls, they were on top in the scrum for most of the first half. Leinster do win a penalty, Healy getting taps on the back in one of the scrums, and it was a rare one for the Bulls to give away in the first half, and there was a big cheer from the crowd, which will tell you how much the Bulls are kind of dominating in that area. That the crowd, one of the biggest cheers for the first half was the fact that Leinster actually won the scrum penalty. And then Bernd Jackman in commentary was actually talking about maybe Leinster were a little lucky, or the Bulls were a little unlucky to get pinged on that one. But then Leinster, they come forward again. Coetzee gets pinged for taking McGrath out, and then Leinster go to the corner. Kelleher managed to find Maloney. They set up a maul. Bulls' initial maul defence I thought was really good. They're edging Leinster towards the touchline, but then Leinster managed to wheel it in field, and then they get over. Kelleher is the scorer. Harry Byrne misses the conversion. It's 12-6. Then Houston's runs back a kick. He finds a gap in that Leinster defence, and he's over halfway. He then has Aronson in support. He gives the ball out to him. He's got a clear run into the corner. There's a desperate tackle from McGrath to try and stop him, but he gets in to score. Houston misses the conversion. It's 12-11. Then before we restart, we have a review of that tackle from McGrath as he tried to prevent Aronson from grounding. It's a very poor tackle. There's not really much in the terms of a rap involved in it. He comes off the worst of the two. Like he's, he went off and didn't come back after that, but still very poor tackle. There's head-on-head contact in it. I'm thinking like Leinster could be in trouble here. This could be a red. TMO looks at it, talking with the officials about it, and they decide that there is some head-on-head contact, but most of the force went through the body, and he gets a yellow card. Again, I think he was very lucky not to get a red for that one. And, I could see or could understand a lot of Bulls fans maybe not being pleased with that decision and feeling that it should have been a red card. But, it's always with these ones, especially when, as they're talking about, the force going through the body and the fact that, that was their mitigating circumstance, I think, to bring it from a red down to yellow, because everything else to me about that tackle says red card. Aronson then, he gets the Bulls close again with a decent run down into that same corner. And then there's great work by Conan as Leinster counter ruck, and he basically rucks over the ball and then shoos it back on his own side. Leinster are able to clear, but the relief from that is kind of short-lived. Kelleher gets pinged for playing the 9, and Bulls have a shot at goal. Hooson strokes it over and sends the Bulls ahead at the break 14-12 at half-time. And I felt that they were well worth the lead at that stage. Leinster maybe producing more in attack with ball in hand, but the Bulls' defense for the most part was solid. And their set piece was going really well, and when they got that chance to score, they executed it well. And again, I felt that they were just shaded that first half. Into the second half, then Bulls started really badly offside, basically like the restart, and then they put a kick up in the air, and it's one of these ones where it hardly goes anywhere, so half their team is offside because of it. And the kicking game hadn't been great and wasn't great really for most of the match either. There was a lot either too short in that case, or like the ones that were too long, or ones that you're just kicking straight down people's throats, or that kind of stuff, or not giving their chasers much chance to really compete. Leinster then, from the penalty, they go to the corner. We have a side entry from Norcia, and Leinster decide to go back into that corner. A scrappy ball from the line out and almost gets turned over as like to try to go, on the ground, like with no jumper, but the Bulls seem to have read it pretty well. Leinster's just about cling on to possession, but they are under pressure from ferocious Bulls defence, which drives them back to the edge of the 22, and you think maybe the danger is gone. But then Larmour, he's filling it in at 9, while Leinster are down to 14, and he snipes and gets them back on the front foot again. They recycle the ball quickly. McCarthy carries well, in the tram lines, and offloads at the back of his hands to Lowe, who remains strong and dives and scores in the corner. Harry Byrne converts from the touchline. It's 19-14. Leinster hit the front again. Leinster then bring on the bulk of their bench, and they have an immediate impact, and they had a big impact on the rest of the game as well. But they're only literally on the field, and Leinster are over again. Larmour's involved twice. Jameson gives Park linking well. You have Harry Byrne in there as well, and then Michael Milne finishes it off. Very incisive attack from Leinster. Just really good hands and really good running lines, and just very smooth from them. Byrne converts again as 26-14. Leinster now start to give the nudge in the scrum with new front rows on both sides. They win a penalty 5 metres out from the Bulls line. They decide to go to the line at maul. Bulls brilliant in their maul defence, and they actually win a penalty because Furlong comes in as the side as the Bulls are driving over the ball, after they'd stop the maul, and then we gone to a ruck. Bulls then break, as you know, this is kind of a weird one. So they're going for a clearance kick. I think it might have been Willie LaRue. I'm not too sure, but they go for a clearance kick. It gets charged down, but it's one of these ones where the Leinster players are kind of not sure whether they're going to be offside or not if they touch it, so they leave it, and then eventually a Bulls player gets their hands on it, and then LaRue and Aronson combine to break down the right wing. We have a high tackle from Leinster, as the move is kind of stopped in that Leinster 22, and then that allows the Bulls to kick to the corner, but Leinster turn it over and they clear. And it was a real contrast for the Bulls. Their set piece, scrum and line out were excellent in the first half, and then they kind of deserted them in the second half. Like the line out was going awry, and then as I said, Leinster were getting a nudge on in the scrum as well. We didn't have a lovely chip from zone 22 from Houston, and that sets up a great counter-attack for the Bulls. I think it was Creel maybe got to that ball and got them on the front foot. I thought he had a really good game for them, and other than like an excellent scramble defense from Leinster, that would have been a try, I think, but they do get a penalty and they decide to go to the corner, and as they're they go to the Maul is making some ground, but Leinster managed to halt it. Then they decide to spread it. Dan Sheehan gets over the ball and he wins a penalty, and that's kind of a missed chance for the Bulls, and it felt like that was kind of their last hurrah, as it were, in terms of trying to get back into the game. Then we have Aronson pretty much straight after drops a high ball and gives Leinster a scrum in the Bulls 22. Conan carries really well, strongly from the back of that scrum. It's recycled. Milne is out in the tram lines. He puts Sheen over in the corner. Ross Byrne, then he's on for his brother. He bends the conversion over from the touchline. It's 33 points to 14. Leinster then, they run back like a very scrappy clearance kick from the Bulls. Ross Byrne then puts Conan through a gap. He shows some good pace, a little bit of a step, and rides the tackle of LaRue to get over to score. And you're feeling like that should be that, at that point, converted for 40 points to 14. Aronson then intercepts James Gibson Park pass in his own, like in the Leinster 22. And he's got a clear run into score. It's converted by Smith, and it's 40 points to 21. But hang on a minute, it's actually not, because we have a TMO review, and we see that Aronson catches Ross Byrne in the head with his boot as he was trying to, fly hack a loose ball through. But Byrne managed to dive on the ball first, and Aronson, in fairness to him, did try and kind of pull his kick, like he didn't go full force into it, but referee decides it's enough for foul play, so the try is chalked off, and then Leinster just immediately up to their end, and they're the ones to score. Got Turner to Russell, back to Turner, who goes over to score, is converted for 47 points to 14. Then at the end, couple of kind of little bits of trivia, I guess. Like, first is that referee Craig Evans turns his ankle just while that score was happening, and he can't continue, so Chris Busby is on for him. He comes from the touchline, and we get the backup official comes onto the line as well. So we have a substitute for referee. Then Leinster think that they've sufficiently run down the clock after the restart, and they decide just to kick the ball dead at their own end of the field. but actually we had 2 seconds left because the stadium clock was like 2 seconds ahead of the official clock, so we have to keep playing on. They do though get their hands back on the ball, and they win a penalty, Sheehan over the ball, and they tap it and then get it off to finish the game. 47 points to 14 is the final score. So we're going to have a look at some of the stats. Hopefully, we never know with URC whether the stats are actually up to date or not. But hopefully they are for this game. So let me pull them up here. Okay, so tries scored 7, tries to 1. And, just on that stat, the Bulls did not look like a team who were 6 tries worse than Leinster tonight, especially in that first half. And, it just shows with Leinster that they can just kind of put those combos together of, they're not happy just with scoring a try. They're trying to hit you with 2, 3, 4 tries in very quick succession, and just to kill you off. And that's what they did to the Bulls tonight as well. Basically for maybe like a 20-minute period scattered across the game, Leinster kind of stepped up into higher gear, and doing that maybe got them kind of 4 or 5 of those tries that they got that really made a difference. But for the rest of the game, I thought the Bulls competed really well. Possession then 58% to 42. Clean breaks 17 to 12. That's decent numbers for both of the teams really in terms of clean breaks, especially when you think that these two teams are defensively pretty mean teams as well. Defenders beaten then 27 to 12 for Leinster, so they're edging that as well. Offloads 13 to 5. Leinster with some really good offloads in the build up to their tries as well. Then on to defense territory, 57 to 43. Number of tackles 83 for Leinster, 128 for the Bulls, and missed tackles 12 to 27. Tackle success 87 for Leinster is actually fairly good. For another team, even for the Bulls, I'd say 87 is kind of around a pass level, but Leinster are generally, in terms of first up tackles, not the best team in the league at that, but it's all about the scramble, and we saw that scramble tonight as well from them, where there are breaks there that I think the Bulls probably against almost any other team in the league would have finished. 83% for the Bulls is definitely down on what they would normally produce. Normally you expect them to be at least up at 87, if not into kind of the low 90s in their defense. But that Leinster attack just clicked really well, and it was definitely one of the best Leinster performances seen this year, possibly their best performance in the URC certainly this year, and up there for maybe even against some of the really good performance they put in the Champions Cup as well. Turnovers 1, then 4 for Leinster, 3 for the Bulls. So the Bulls a bit more even on that, especially in that first half where they kind of teams that generally get at this Leinster team, they pick their moments to flood the breakdown, because we know Leinster generally don't like to commit too many players there, and they did that well. I thought better certainly in the first half than they did in the second half. Kicks retained 5 by each team. Penalties conceded 12 for Leinster, 9 for the Bulls. So the Bulls on the right side of the whistle, but really couldn't make the most of it, and especially in the second half where they had some chances and their line-out just deserted them when they were in that corner as well. You felt like that was the time for them to just kind of not necessarily get themselves back in the lead, but get themselves back within kind of a score and keep that pressure on Leinster. And if they had done that, maybe the final quarter could have turned out a little bit differently, but Leinster really in that final quarter, that was where they kind of pulled away. In terms of then like successful carries, you got Rob Russell, who he's a really good player for Leinster. We talk about it, it being almost a factory of really quality players, and he's another one coming. He's already come through that system, but in terms of just being at the level, the rest of, or the majority of their back line, are kind of established internationals at this stage. Rob Russell is kind of in that in-between period where, you see players like that where, it feels like the next logical thing is to step up into the international arena, and maybe we're going to see that from him. Maybe like in the autumn, I think if he continues this form through the rest of the season, stays injury free, we might see him getting some representation then. But also kind of with Leinster, because of the number of quality players they have as well, it can be for a player like him where next year then there might be like the kind of thinking about, can he continue at that level and be able to push for more representation for Ireland, or does he have to maybe move out of the province to one of the other provinces? So that's I think it's going to be an interesting thing for him, because when you look at the quality Leinster have in that back line, and the different options, the different youngsters coming through as well. You've also got like Turner who come off the bench, and you've got Osborne in there, and actually now like you've got Osborne in there, you've got Frawley there as well, and just plenty of talent in there, and Jordan Larmour now coming back to some really good form too. So it's going to be an interesting time for him as well in his development. He does have to make sure that he's getting regular game time, I think. But on the other side then from the Bulls, a real established test animal in Curtly Arendse. I thought he had an excellent game in a losing Bulls team. The guy is always dangerous, but he looked kind of electric tonight at times as well. Defenders beaten then, Jordan Larmour, we just talked about him, being back to form. For me, probably his best game either for Leinster or for Ireland that I can remember for maybe 2 or 3 years at least from him. He has kind of this season, I think he's looked better than he did last season in terms of just his impact on the game. Last year I felt like he was running up too many blind alleys, but this year starting to look a bit better. And then this is kind of a culmination of that, all of the good things that he's been doing this year kind of coming together. For Bulls and Papier beating 2 defenders for them. Meters made then, Rob Russell 102, and then Curtly Arendse 57 for the Bulls. Offloads, Russell then with 5, and Gumede for 2 for the Bulls. Then on defence, Bird with 10 tackles, the best tackler or the most tackles for Leinster. I've been impressed with him in the fact that he's been more kind of quietly effective than being this kind of show pony. So it's good to see more and more of that from him. Then Marcel Coetzee for the Bulls, who again is a player that I really rate. 16 tackles from him. So like some really good performances on the Bulls side, and I really don't feel like that the scoreline does their performance justice in this either. I do feel like Leinster deserved the win, but I feel that the Bulls deserve more out of the game as well. But this is what can happen against this Leinster team. They just click and they pull away. So what about kind of the two teams from here? So the Bulls, I felt like, especially at halftime, this is a big chance for them to put down a statement. They won at the RDS a couple of seasons ago in the knockout stages, and it felt like it was on again today when they were winning 14-12. But in the second half, they started up early, and they even in that kind of third quarter of the game, they didn't take the chances that they created to kind of keep themselves in the game. And then once Leinster brought on that bench, they were a big difference between the two teams, and they pulled away. But the Bulls still, in that first half, line-out was going well. Their scrum was clearly on top as well. And they show as well that, they have the talent in that back line to cause that Leinster defence problems as well. From Leinster's point of view then, they took their chances well when they weren't on top in the set piece, and in the second half, then when they just started to create, they at times just look like poetry in motion really in their attack, and also then being able to bring on the power from the bench as well, and being able to go again in that the final quarter of the game and put up another 3 tries there to kind of stretch the score out as well. It's something that Leinster do regularly, and they're one of the few teams who can also do regularly against teams of the quality of the Bulls. It's it's one thing putting almost 50 points on, if the Bulls is sent like a second team or wherever, or if it's like one of the teams down at the bottom of the league, but being able to do that against a quality side like the Bulls just speaks to the kind of the talent that is in that Leinster team. Now again, the Bulls stood toe to toe with them for about 40 minutes, because like it was the opening kind of 5 minutes of the second half where Leinster started to take control. But again, this Bulls team and the Bulls squad, there's tons of quality in there, and just because they've lost this, I don't think it necessarily means that if it needs to meet again in the knockout stages, that it's going to be a gimme for Leinster. I think you start again from there, clean slate from the two teams, and the Bulls, they just have to be able to put that first half performance and make it an 80-minute performance, and then Leinster are going to be in trouble against them. But Leinster thought that they dealt with the kind of adversity of that. They probably should have had the adversity of having to play the second half with 14 men, and that would have obviously had an effect on the scoreline. You can't necessarily say that the Bulls are going to win, because we've seen teams in the past being able to cope with a man reduction, but maybe the scoreline could have been closer if that had been the case. But with something like that as well, you can't kind of blame Leinster because the player didn't get a red card either, if you know what I mean. Certainly like McGrath won't be like he curved himself in glory with that tackle, and it's not something that you see that often from Leinster. But in fairness, you don't see from many teams, those type of tackles on a very regular basis either. So, but Leinster, I think they're going to be happy with this win, but they know now that they're the kind of team, because they have this big squad full of quality, that there's tons of competition in there now for places. And I think this is what was missing last year, was that I talked about before. It felt like there was a Leinster team who were the players that were in the Ireland squad, and then there was a Leinster team who were like the URC team that played week in, week out, and then the test Leinster team, as it were, would come in for the Champions Cup or the big games in the URC, and then the other guys would be rotated all the time, and it was almost like never the two shall meet. But this year you're seeing it here, like in this game, like with the likes of Russell, the likes of Russell, Turner coming on, Osborne in there as well, and you got the likes of Milne coming on in the pack as well, and that there's a lot more mixing between those two. You had Ross Maloney in the second row today as well. You got Al Alatoa in there too in the front row. So there's more kind of mixing, and it feels like there's more competition within the squad this year. I think that's going to be something that will drive them on. But again, great win from Leinster, and actually a decent performance, especially in the first half, from the Bulls.